If you're like me, and you got no life and there's nowhere to go, then tune in to the Animation Truman Show. You'll be glad you did.
And there we go. We are live. This was a bit of an experimental live stream because I did some serious culling on my YouTube channel today. So those who come around a lot might, I guess it's pure vanity to suggest that maybe people will wonder where certain content is, because I have literally hundreds of like live stream videos and stuff that I have changed to unlisted status, but I've placed them all in playlists. So anyway, you'll see that my channel is actually, it's evolved slightly today because of taking literally hundreds of marginally performing videos and making them unlisted. And what that did was it caused the videos that are more popular, that people seem to get more out of or whatever, just sort of rise to the top in the video list. And my thinking is probably going forward I'm going to do the same with live stream. So after I live stream, it'll actually go from being public to being unlisted, but it will appear in the Animation Truman Show live stream, playlist. So there are two playlists on YouTube that are really, really long, and one of them is creating an anime, which has like 300 videos, and then the other one would be the Animation Truman Show. I don't know how many it has, but it's probably like 150 or something. It's a lot. And hey, Maria. So the most useful thing that I'm going to demonstrate tonight that may be useful to some people is that I was, doing grass like this. It's a bit of a job. A bit of a tug of war between just drawing individual blades of grass, if you will, with a pencil, versus having some fancy schmancy brushes that make the job easier, and yada yada yada. So anyway, Krita does have this particular brush right here, which is really, if you animate it, it actually is a really great brush for animating reflections in water. That's basically what the brush is for. But what I noticed was if I took a green backdrop like this, and then I used this brush, and I actually need to make a change in this brush. I need to switch it back to what it was initially. So it's this brush. Okay, so hit the F5 key so I'm no longer editing the brush. So with kind of a dirty just kind of a parched ground type color, tans or whatever, you can kind of sketch in this texture that made it a little easier to just block in. The ground isn't actually supposed to look that lush. So the idea here, the concept would be you'd be starting with, you could probably do it here, actually. Let me look at this. Yeah, so this is the background. So what you do is, if you soloed the layer, let's just say, to keep things consistent, we'll just sample a mid-range green color. Okay, so I'm going to hit the F key and just fill it. Okay, so that's probably not quite as rich. Let me try that one again. Yeah, that's probably better. Okay, so anyway, the idea was you take this sort of nasty brown color and hit the old B key. And what I'm trying to do is, having the characters in there kind of helps get the concept across. But so you're sort of just trying to, you're looking into space, and there would be these, and there needs to be, in this particular shot, there needs to be a horizon line and probably some sky up here. So I won't worry about what's up here too much. But the idea is to just create this variation in the ground that would suggest that it's not all like grass that's growing well, because obviously they've been suffering from a drought. So hey Blifton, So I'm just going to kind of block that in. And then the idea was, what you can do in Krita is if you hit F5, you can edit your brush, right? So if you take this brush and then you scroll up here to the, let's see here, find this one, that one right there, and then you just kind of click the background again and hit F5 again. Now what you can do is take the grass color and see what I mean? Just kind of let the animated brush now cut into over top of the grayed out, you know, sort of dirty areas. And it's all just judgment, really. I mean, you know, so I'm sampling the basic green color, and then with a fairly small dynamic range, trying to just kind of feel where the you know, some larger or more, you know, little patches. There's little patches of grass or whatever, but basically the general condition of the ground is not the greatest. So hope that makes sense. So, but toggling between the two textures, because the brush works the same way. You know, it's the same type of like animated brush, but it you can kind of get in the groove. And oh, here comes Valerie. Hey, baby doll. So anyway, the reason I actually live streamed, because I wanted to test the live stream settings to see if it was going to be possible to have a public live stream that, when it's done, is not public, and also is automatically, if you will, added to a playlist. And it doesn't look like that's possible. So it looks like what you have to do is live stream like I'm doing now, and then when you're done, go in and modify that video, you know, pretty much immediately, kind of thing. But that way, my thinking is it'll keep the channel from being too cluttered up. And another thing I do plan to do is create a channel trailer. So I have a video that was originally put together as a pitch video for crowdfunding, and it's gone through a couple different iterations. I kind of struggled with what I really wanted my sort of pitch or my message to be. So anyway, the point is I'm going to use that video as a starting point to create a channel trailer. So it should be kind of fun. I mean, it's basically a little, it'll be like a one minute, if not 30 seconds actually, but a little bragging video where you say, hey, you know, I can animate and compose music, and I've made movies and blah blah blah, and I've done this and I've done that, and look how cool it is to be what I actually am, which is, I guess you'd say, I'm a polymathic creative. You know, that's, you know, if you don't know what the term polymath is, basically a polymath is somebody who seems to be fairly accomplished in very disparate areas of endeavor. So I know that's kind of weird, and again, I'm not saying it to brag. It's just who I am. You know, I love to compose music. I enjoy doing the animation thing. I have enjoyed making movies, although I don't expect to be doing that anytime soon again. I'm having too much fun making cartoons, frankly. You know, but the point is that I think that if a channel trailer that is what you see when you first come to the channel, that might be a compelling little story that says, okay, you know, maybe what this guy's doing is kind of interesting or whatever. That's the mindset. Nothing too fancy schmancy. So, anyway. Okay, so as you can see, I guess this is a good proof of concept, because as you can see, this background painting, obviously we do need to put the sky in there or whatever, but basically that came together pretty quick. The tug of war that we have with background painting is that a lot of times, to get the general feel of how the painting's coming together, you really want like this smaller screen like this, so you can just kind of feel the overall ranges of tone and whatever, and the composition. Obviously feel the balance of the composition or whatever, which I don't consider myself to be all that amazingly great at. The problem you can have, though, is if you do that, like if I sketch this in so it actually looked pretty good with my standard pencil, let's say, then what happens is when you hit the N key and look at it actual size, you can find there's like all kinds of scribbles and detail that really doesn't look good at the actual size it's gonna be. Probably the middle ground solution to that problem would be to do this, would be to be actually working at broadcast HD but go full screen so at least I can see the whole picture. So I'm just thinking out loud here. Thinking out loud, friends. So this feels pretty good, getting a little bit more muted, dirty tone in there. That it's starting to actually feel the way I think the ground would actually be for these guys. You know, as I say, they've been going through a drought, basically a drought and famine situation for quite a while, 20 years or something. Now, if I right click like that, you do have the ability right here to just to fiddle with, you know, you can change the color without having to go away from full screen. So kind of works. So I like those little patches though of sort of like I said, parched ground, I guess is what I would call it. Hey Amar, if you do live stream and start it from YouTube, even with OBS, you can set it to private, publicly, or unlisted. Well, and yeah, I do. I mean, I set the live streams to public. What I was wondering, I don't think there's a way though to have it be public. And then see what I thought maybe you could do is have a live stream. And let me, I'm jabbering here. I'm starting and stopping a lot, but it seems to me way back in the day when I was first starting to live stream, I remember a setting in YouTube that essentially gave you the choice of whether the video is going to remain on your channel as just a watchable video after the stream. And I'm sure there's a way to set that, but just a quick and dirty look, I couldn't find it. You know, it's kind of the same problem I'm having with Discord, where I probably just need to do a better job of finding my way around. So the idea would be that when I'm live, and then it's not a, you know, just a watchable video. But then what I would do is manually place it into the appropriate playlist. So then what happens, you know, what good is that? Well, it just creates a situation where, you know, I'm not trying to get a million views on any one video, especially the live streams. Very few of them get more than 100 views, actually. And so you got this content that sort of clutters up your channel that, you know, at the end of the day, let's face it, people really aren't watching it anyway. And the ones that go hog wild, which there aren't that many, but there are a few. I mean, I got one on OpenTunes rigging that has like 20,000 views, which is, for this type of content, that's kind of a lot. But, and so I'm leaving those public. But anyway, let's see what we have here. Yeah, I mean, I'm liking the feeling of this for sure. I think I've done an okay job on the background. So we got this one. Probably gonna have to put some buildings in the background, but since I'm kind of into the foliage thing at the moment, that's like what I'm working on tonight, I guess I'll probably leave it. Now this is an interesting state of affairs. This is a really interesting state of affairs. Look at that. So I've got this painting that I just did that actually, as far as I can tell, looks better on this shot than it did on this shot. I'm gonna duplicate this over here. Let's just see what we can do to wrangle this around and make it work. If we go back to this, gosh, I think I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna try to cheat here if I can. So I'm gonna scale it up a bit and then actually flip it. Just flip it around. Just so it's a little different, so we're just getting a different little smidgen of that particular. That looks pretty good right there. Oh, I lost it. It's because Krita's dragging a little bit. That actually feels pretty good. Yes, there we go. So I'm going to keep that. So now we're going from that to that to that. Except there's a problem. What did I do wrong here? How did we get... wait a second. Now I'm confused. Monkey runs. Why do we have... Oh, I think I duplicated the wrong... Okay, guys, now I have to ignore you guys and think about what I just did. So I'm definitely dealing with the... Yeah, something's actually badly wrong here. Something about the blind guy. There is a shot that disappeared. And being mildly dyslexic, this is probably a lot harder for me than it would be for some people, because I'm having to kind of think in reverse about what I'm seeing. That's the wrong shot of monkey there. And the one really important shot of the old man is like literally gone. Okay. Tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to actually hedge my bets here and see if I can fake my way out of this one. I'm going to call this, change the name of this to C2, and then I'm going to reload C, and I'll bet you it's in there and I can just reinsert the drawing from the other version if it didn't get saved. So, well, it's not fun to have a public disaster here on YouTube, but here it is. Okay, so this is what we wanted. And I think the solution actually would be to delete this. Okay, watch this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this background layer and delete it. Okay? And then I'm going to go to this that I renamed a moment ago. And I'm going to take this layer that had the background in it, and I'm going to copy the layer, go back to here. Okay? And I guess, all right, so Krita is acting a little, there we go. Paste layer. Okay. Pasted that back in. And now we can close this, and this one, go ahead and resave it. So now we restored the background with all the most recent changes, so that's good. Not as big of a panic as you might have thought. So yeah, the ability to, one of the cool things about the ability to copy and paste layers in Krita that you guys might want to be aware of. A couple things about layers, actually. One is that you can do it with a group. So if all these layers were put in a group, so you grab them all and hit Control G, which is a common thing to do if you want to add extra layers for maybe color correction or whatever. If I go copy this layer and then paste it into another Krita file, it's going to copy the entire group. Copy and paste the entire group. So that's useful. Another thing you may not know is that you also can drag and drop a Krita file into another Krita file, and it'll just paste in as a bunch of new layers in the current document, or you can make it a file. What do they call it? I think a file layer. But what it is, it's like in Blender when you do a link. So the Krita file that you drag and drop into another Krita file remains, you can't edit it. But you can use it in another Krita file, and then if you change the original on the hard disk and then reload the Krita file that you dragged it into, all the updates, will appear. Kind of the way you would, I guess, intuitively expect or hope it would work. So just something to think about, because when you're talking about data organization, these sorts of things do kind of become important. especially if you create like a library of characters or something that you want to just that may in fact consist of several layers, but that you want to reuse in multiple scenes, that type of idea. So now we have one little hiccup here. When he picks up the coin, it looks to me like I did a little bit of painting on the background that I probably shouldn't have done. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit the S key. I'm going to grab this section back here, and this is going to be easy to fix as well. And then we're going to go to the next background painting, and I need to not have the group selected. I need to have this specific layer selected. So frankly, I probably should redo the cut and paste. Control C, and then go here. See, the only difference between these two images is the coin is gone. But as you can see, if you look up here, I did a little extra painting, and so that makes it's going to chatter because there's that little difference between the two frames. So the solution is edit, paste into active layer. So now they're the same, other than the coin being gone. Cool beans. Well, this is the thing you find with Krita. Whatever your issue is, there's always a way. Now you can see this is what I was trying to do when I ran into the little problem. This is the stretched painting, and now here's actually the same painting, but not stretched and not flipped either. So cool, that worked. Better save my work, huh? Okay, so yeah, another guy I watch videos. Does that with his live stream for his Patreon videos. Well, see, that's the other thing. I mean, of course, that's a whole nother option that I don't think there's really enough people following me to justify fiddling with it at this point. But yeah, I mean, you can do live streams that are for members, members only type things, and So the whole idea of premium content is obviously on the table. And I'm just allowing myself to delve into those things patiently. It's not something that's got to be figured out today. But I've been meaning for quite some time to clean up the YouTube channel content, because there's just like hundreds of live stream videos that have like 30 views or something in a year. Okay, so here, let's go ahead and let's cheat again. I think it's fun to cheat, so let's cheat. Let's take this painting, and what is it? I think, yeah, I didn't want to do that. So I'm going to hit Z. So I got to remember what it is. Is it Alt? Yes, Alt. So if I do Alt, I can take this whole thing and compress it down like that, which will be a nice, just a quick and dirty ground. Because obviously for this shot, we're going to probably want to put a little bit of the village background in there, and then it's pretty much going to be a sky situation. So, cool. I can live with that. And then he takes the coins. That's the, I did the ink and paint earlier this morning. Okay, cool. So, Amar, talking about the videos that are unlisted and only shared with members, right? Now, in my case, it's not quite that. What it is I live stream live, then I immediately set the video to unlisted, but I also place it in the playlist. So it's actually public in the sense that you can. So the point is this, that for people that really want to go back, I need to put this in my video description, actually. So that anytime I live stream, it's in the video description that it says that if you want to watch this later on, go to this playlist. And then and it'll be at the top because they're sorted chronologically. So it just keeps everything clean and it gives me a little more control. Like I created a playlist, I think it was maybe 2 days ago, for the I created the playlist today actually for the Salt and Light webisodes. Okay. Well, you have to put videos in a playlist if you want to determine how YouTube stacks them on your channel. So if you want to feature something at the top, it can't be a video, it's got to be a playlist. And so even if it's a playlist of only one video, you still have to put it in a playlist just so you can have a featured video. So now my channel has the Salt and Light webisodes at the tippy top. The problem is that the trailer video, if you will, which is what new people see when they first come to the channel, that plays automatically, I really don't want that to be the Salt and Light webisode. I really want that to be, what's like you were saying earlier today. It really needs to be more of an introduction to me and my channel is what it needs to be. So yeah, see, you got the same situation, Amar, that I do. I mean, it's not a bad problem to have. Obviously, if I really wanted to put out a lot of curated content and go for a lot more views, there's some really, really good content that could be, you know, like you could take there's probably at least 100 cases. I mean, probably 200, but where if I wanted to take the time, I could take a live stream, turn it into an 8-minute speed paint, and then actually take the final resulting scene that was rendered and put in the show, and actually post that video as a YouTube short. And that's really the, if you will, the marketing funnel that I think we're all trying to develop. So you use shorts to get quick and dirty attention for the final result, like, oh, that's cool. And then that would link to a speed paint that is basically a making of. And then in that scenario, if a person was building a channel from scratch and they were, you know, they're doing really good work or whatever, then it seems to me that the premium content for members would actually be the live stream that it all came from in the first place. So you could do that, and in a way it's sort of a nice teaser because the initial live stream actually is available to the whole world. It's just that if you weren't lucky enough to watch it when it first aired, then you'd be a member. You'd have to be a member in order to get to it later, right? So that's kind of the concept. I'm not saying I'm going to adopt that concept. As I said, for me, at this point, as far as I can tell, I expect that all the videos of my live streams will still remain public. It's just that they're hidden in a playlist as opposed to being searchable. Trust me, most of them, there's no harm in them not being searchable. There's really not much there. And all the content that's really good, which I'm just, you know, if it's got like 300 to 2,000 views, I'd say, okay, this must be something people want to watch. All of those videos are remaining public. So anyway, what do we got here? Let's just play it once live. Okay, so we really need to do ink and paint on Monkey. And I'm kind of sick of background painting for tonight. I was doing quite a bit before I went live. So why don't we go ahead and bring up Vegas so that I can steal a color key from another shot. And yeah, on your live streams, you've got that's a 500 videos is a lot of videos, dude. I mean, I'm there. I'm definitely there. I've got at least, geez, I don't know how many videos I have in total, but it's got to be in the neighborhood of at least 500, probably five to 8. I mean, it's kind of a lot. Okay, so I'm just on the other screen looking for a key shot from episode 2 of Monkey that will serve as a nice color key here. Oh, there we go. So I'm going to cut this to the clipboard. You guys can't see this, but okay. And so what I'm going to do is come over here and just go Control V, and then there we go. So now I have my color key, and I can actually just move this over off to the side. And I would say probably I have to think about this because we've got the shadow colors, then we got the midtone colors, and then we've got essentially like what you'd use in Tahoma, which is the body highlight effect. Pretty sure this was done in Krita originally, but so it's really the midtones. I don't know though. This looks to me like the body highlight effect used in reverse. But it is also sort of a morning, so maybe we'll just kind of go with this. So, well, this is why this is the Animation Truman Show, because you're basically watching me ramble. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go, we're going to use the fill tool. We'll grab that color. And let's just get Monkey's faces taken care of. So now I'm going to hit the tilde key, which I have mapped to this little feature called Isolate Active Layer. It's essentially, if you're into music, it's a solo button. That's your solo button. Okay, so now what are we going to do? We're going to do behind mode. I would say behind would probably be a good way to go. And I don't know, I'm kind of feeling like I'm going to regret this color. I better play it safe, because remember, I can always darken it. That really is more the color that's been used throughout the show for Monkey's face. So let's just play it safe here, shall we? Yeah, that looks better. Let's play it safe. Whoops. What brush have I got going here? I want that brush. Okay. Should we give a little indication of his... Oopsie. We're not in behind mode, folks. Get behind! If I hit the B key, yep, stays in behind mode. So I'm just going to go ahead and do a little judicious hand painting to give his fingers a little bit of that flesh tone. Just a little bit, and then I can hit the F key and sort of fill it in that way. Cool. Next frame. Okay, this is going to require a little bit of hand painting because... Okay, stop. Why? Okay, I see what's going on. So now, why did it switch back to the grass brush? That's bizarre. Ick. Pencil. Okay, cool. Sheesh, that was annoying. And now it's switched back to normal mode. Ugh. No, I shouldn't complain. We're talking about pretty amazing software, but when you're really moving fast and you know exactly in your mind, you're like, I know exactly what I'm about to do, and then the software glitches on you, it can be quite annoying. Definitely. Boink. Okay, so I might have to just click that a few times, and yeah, that did the trick. So now let's go here. Boom, boom, boom. Boom, boom, boom. Boom, boom, boom. Boom, boom. What is that? Oh, there's some noise there that's going to have to be fixed. Huh. Interesting. What the heck? Well, friends, there's a way to clean this problem up in one swoop. Oh, I see what's going on. That's interesting. I see what's going on. We've got this indication of his neck. For whatever reason, when I went to the next drawing, the little neck indication, that slipped by me. That snuck by me, friends. So, what do you do? Well, you get out of behind mode. You go into normal mode. Hit the E key. And judiciously erase. Now we could add an erase layer and then bake it down. And the reason you would want to do that is because there is the possibility that I'm going to introduce some chatter. Because the question you got to be asking yourself right now is, what are the odds that I'm going to erase this little mistake the exact same way every time? And the odds are pretty poor, actually. So there's a good chance of introducing chatter. But if I'm careful, right there is an example, actually. I'm going to hit undo. where I didn't quite erase it the same way. And chatter, oh, there I did it again, is frowned upon. Whereas if I added another layer in erase mode, put the monkey and the erase mode layer in the group, and then did the erase operation one time and then baked it down, it would cause that whole erase operation to span the entire level. So what do I mean by that? I take the monkey who's soloed right now, so let's unsolo the layer and then just get rid of everything else for the moment. Okay, now wait a second. Let me check something. Okay, so now here's what I do. Control G to put monkey in a group, then add another layer, put that layer in erase mode, and then just draw this shape like that. Not in erase mode here. The layer is in erase mode, but I don't want my brush to be in erase mode because I actually need to draw a shape. So I draw the shape, and as you can see, it covers up the problem. And then as I go forward, it covers it up in all the subsequent frames. Then I take the group and just, careful now. This is a little bit dangerous. This is actually super dangerous. This is critically important. Right now, this is not an animated layer. So what I need to do is on the erase layer, I need to insert, control insert a keyframe here. So that this, so there's nothing in the layer here, and then here the little correction shape that I drew shows up. Well, this is the, and in fact, look at it. Look at that. You see that chatter? So actually stop everything. We need to actually go back a bunch of steps. I'm going to tell you guys that the way I did it initially was not smart. And the way I'm doing it now is absolutely the way you would definitely always want to do something like this. So let's just do it right. So the problem we have is that we'll say starting here, we've got a problem with monkey. Because we have to erase this over a whole sequence of frames. All of these animated keyframes have this same mistake that slipped by. Okay? So we take monkey, put him in a group, and if you want to make your life easier, probably the way to do it would be just pick a color and draw a shape like this, and then just take your brush and really dial it in. Really figure out what you're trying to cover up, right? Then you can put the layer in erase mode. But before I do, I'm going to do two things. See, I don't want this big spot over all this other stuff. So I'm going to take, on this frame, I'm going to hit Control Insert that sets a keyframe, but then here, we'll just hit Insert. So we have a blank keyframe, then the correction appears, and then when we get to here, we want the correction to be gone. If I forgot to do this step, then you'd wind up baking this correction into all of the rest of the animated frames all the way through the timeline, which would be a disaster. So now that little correction only appears here. Now if we take that and put it into erase mode, now we've not only fixed the problem, but the correction is exactly the same on every frame, which means we don't get any chatter. Makes sense? This is actually a really, really damn important thing to know how to do, because you are going to have, in animation, you're going to have stuff like this where you've got something you need to correct over a vast number of frames. Now, before I commit to it, I will say this. I'm going to actually make one more change to it, because I'm noticing, as long as I'm here, that I really don't like the way this line is jutting out on his nose. So now we're good. And now I can take this and what we really want to do is merge it down. So merge with layer below. Technically, this really didn't need to be in a group, so we can just delete that group. Hit the trash can. Okay, so now let's go back and let's just see. Part of the problem might have come, actually I expect this is the case, is that the reason that problem got introduced is because Monkey used to be 2 layers. He was a head and a body, and I think I baked the 2 together, and there was some stuff that really should have been cleaned up before the 2 layers were merged, and I just forgot that step. So I'm going to go ahead and sample Monkey's face color again just so we have it handy. Okay, cool. So now we can go through and get Monkey colored. F key in behind mode. And there we go. So I don't usually like to do a bunch of redundant fill operations like this, but sometimes it's going to take all of 1 minute to do, and sometimes it's best to just do it. Okay, so now, hey Yvette, I was just talking to Yvonne about you, because she's writing right now at a clip really similar to yours. She actually wrote about in a Word document, it's about 350 pages, so you might be able to tell me this. So a book that's, I think it's double spaced, pretty sure it's double spaced, but it's full size normal word processor type pages. So she's got about 300, let's take 300 as a round number. She's got 300 pages. How many pages is that going to translate into in a normal, like a small format paperback type of book? How many pages? Is it still going to come out around 300, or is it going to be bigger, smaller? I mean, more or less. Curious about that. But yeah, the book she's writing, the sort of comedic modern urban fantasy that involves there's like vampires and gargoyles and all these different, they kind of hide in plain sight as people in different ways, you know what I mean? So there's a whole mythology about it, but it's interesting because the first book she wrote, she had never written a book. This is a totally new thing for her, And she wrote this first book in about a couple months. And then she really got into this one she's writing that she just finished. She needs to do another draft on it, obviously, but it only took about a month. So cranking out a 300-page book a month seems kind of similar to what you said you've done, because you said you've done like 7 books in 6 months or something. I hope I'm not talking into the wind here. Are you still here, Yvette? Oh, there you are. It depends, because you can pick different size books. Yeah, I'm just thinking about a typical, think about an urban fantasy paperback. I mean, I don't know. And obviously the size of the type. I mean, I'm with you. The type size matters. Everything matters. Right? Okay. Actually, I need to stop myself here for just a second, because we got another problem that we're going to introduce. Partly, again, because of baking things together. Let me undo that color right there. Okay. So what we need to do is actually go back to keeping the color and the ink lines separate, for the simple reason that I'm doing this, fairly detailed coloring here because of his fingers, and there's no way, it's literally impossible to do that type of painting over and over and over again the same way. So now you're in a situation where you would have to cut and paste it, which is what you would have to do in Tahoma, frankly, but it makes a lot more sense to paint it one time and have that paint job prevail until the ink lines move into a different position. I hope that makes sense. And by the way, let's do one here too. So what I'm going to do is go back to the monkey paint layer I just created and put a blank keyframe. So different size books. I figured that would be the case. I was just curious if you thought there was in your experience, if there's a general mapping between, say, a typical word processor size, type document versus how many pages you wind up with when it's, formatted properly. I was just kind of curious basically I'm asking you how long you think her book is, actually. Is it actually a 300-page book, or is it actually more like, 425 or something like that? Maybe an impossible question to answer, but figured I'd throw it out there just because that's what I do. All right, let me see here. Yeah, same case here. So here we have, fortunately his fingers moved, so that sort of saved me in this case, because I don't have to worry about matching and avoiding chatter. So, anyway, it's nice to see you. I'm glad you've been sort of coming around again recently, Yvette. And you don't double space, yeah. At least I think she double spaces. I'd have to ask her. She doesn't really let me read the books because she wants to get at least through a couple drafts before she lets me, sort of dive in. And I think I'm going to leave the color the same on top. So here, I'm going to say, let's insert a key. And then here, yeah, this is actually some pretty gnarly detail work. I don't know if most of the time when we've seen Monkey, I haven't really done quite this level of detail. I can see right now that probably those ink lines need to be cleaned up a little bit, but that's okay. I'll get to it. I will get to it. Okay. So now, see, now that ink I did right there I can actually leave it in there for his toes. Then I'll just go GE, so freehand path tool in erase mode, and then BE to turn off erase mode and go back to my brush. And now I can add it here. And again, I'm just being a little judicious. The main idea is that on the bottoms of his hands, his palms or whatever, you would see his skin. And so I'm just kind of allowing that to sneak through. Okay, here, GE, just erase that, and then BE, so same situation, just get a little bit of this skin tone that's going to come in. I must say, I seem to be becoming a slightly more patient animator than I used to be. It seems. Okay. Oh, I guess actually wrong though. This really needs to be. That needs to be all painted in right there. The standard size for paperback is 6x9. Okay. That's actually probably about the size. If I move this down like this, that's probably about the size right there. About the size of my canvas area that you can see on the screen is about 6x9. If she changes the doc to match the size, she'll see how many pages it will be. Well, that's true, obviously. I'm probably asking stupid questions here. Just because it popped into my head because you showed up. So it's all good. But what I think you just said is, geez, Dave, if you took like 2 minutes, you could kind of figure that out for yourself. To which I say, yeah, you're right. That's true. Okay, so boom, boom, and boom. Okay. So now, since we're dealing with monkeys, let us say flesh tone, let's just keep going on that tack, as we like to say. I'm not going to bother with these fingers here. I think that's a bit stupid. I would say insert. Here we definitely need to do something. Okay, so let's draw a border. Hit the F key, and unfortunately this is going to require a little bit more delicate handling. Now you can see there's some pencil lines that actually snuck through too. I'm not going to worry about that because these cells are on the screen for 1 frame. They're here, they're gone. And that's that. So, insert. I think we're just going to leave him the standard monkey color there. Okay, here, face, insert, face, insert. Insert creates a blank keyframe. I don't think there's a way in Krita to take a frame that has something on it and have it essentially blank out the frame when you start drawing. That's kind of what happens actually in Tahoma. Krita doesn't really have a way to do that. You have to actually hit the insert key and insert a blank frame. So here we've got, geez, we probably should do a little bit of finger action here. Just a little bit. That's why I say I'm a more patient animator than I used to be, because I'm really just trying to drill down to the micro level a little bit more and just give a little more attention to items that tend to enhance the quality a little bit. Just a little bit. Just a little bit. So, there we go. Alright. Okay, boom, boom. Okay, yeah, so. This will go a lot faster when I get to the fur color, because it's just going to be pretty much a fill operation. Boom, ba-boom, ba-boom, boom, boom, ba-doo. Okay, same situation here. Probably need to zoom in. I find it interesting though that Krita, I had noted earlier today that it has a tendency to go into a bit of a locked state if you roll your mouse wheel. Yet, if you're using a stylus and you do control middle mouse drag, it never goes into the locked condition. There's something about the mouse wheel messages that seem to be, no pun intended, monkeying with Krita. It doesn't cause a crash though. If you just click away to a different program and then back to Krita, it comes back to life. So, kind of weird. Kind of weird. Alright, and now here we've got to insert keyframe. A little bit more flesh tone action here. Probably, yeah, I think we'll leave it at that. I don't think there's... Okay, so insert... Yeah, there's just 2 frames of that. So I'm going to leave it at that. Oh, there it went again. Do not use the mouse wheel there, Dave. No mouse wheels allowed. Okay, and then here. Okay, that's cool. I painted out his hands so that his hands could be covered up by the old man's hands. So that appears to be correctamundo. Let's hit play and see what happens. So we'll probably, let's put the backgrounds back in there. There's our color key, so we might as well grab this color right now. In fact, I'm going to sample this there. Now when I hit the X key, so this is kind of convenient. A little late, frankly, but remember you can use the X key, just like in GIMP, probably other programs too, but to essentially toggle between your quote-unquote foreground and background color. I've been finding that really useful because, like, when I was doing the grass, when I was doing some hand painting, I had a mid-tone green for everything, and then what I did was I sampled a little bit lighter green, and then hit the X key in a little bit darker green, and it made it really quick to just paint blades of grass, and then like right here, immediately just hit the X key and then put a little highlight on it to sort of make the edges pop or whatever. So, just one of those things. Be aware of. Okay, and then Krita just did it. Just went into this locked state. Okay, now that's interesting. It went into the locked state because of the middle mouse button. But when I took my stylus on the tablet screen and just brought it down and then wiggled it around, it also came back to life. So there you go. You just never know the wonderful things you're going to discover by pluck and by luck. All right, let's let this play and just kind of see how things are feeling. Dude, I'm liking what I'm seeing here. I am liking what I'm seeing here. Thank you, little friend, he says. Thank you, little friend. So that's kind of, I didn't really do the best job there voicing Monkey that I've ever done, but you get the idea. So we'll turn that back off, save that, and I've been learning how to create my own music for my animations. How are you doing that? How are you creating the music? I think that's awesome, Yvette. You're like me. You're a polymath. You really are, by the way. I mean, you say that lightly. I love that you're a multi-talented person who, and like me, I think you're probably finding there are many areas where you're always just trying to improve a little bit every day, Just a little bit every day. Okay, why do I not see... Oh, I know why. Okay, never mind. What I was wondering is why here we've got the flesh tone, why I'm not seeing an animation keyframe. And the reason is because the first few frames I had colored it in directly in the ink layer, so no big deal. I'm going to hit the fill tool and see how far that gets me. Okay, that'll work. So we need to go forward one frame. Yes, I can hit insert because this flesh tone is not in the paint layer. Nice. Uh-oh. Well, that was bound to happen. Violin 2. Okay, so that's really cool. Very, very cool. Now, I've kind of speculated. I have not had the opportunity to meet very many people who are like me. actually. I can't even actually think of anybody. When I think of it, I think of somebody like Robert Rodriguez, who makes films, but he also does music, and so it's cool to find other kindred souls out there that really like to chase their creative muse. So right now, since we don't have a fill check tool, unfortunately, I guess I got it. I got lucky. I thought I had, but I wasn't sure. So one thing you can also do here, because I'm in behind mode, I can put a lasso around all of this just to make sure that all the little bits of white are filled in. So are we going to get lucky or not here? I'm thinking it's unlikely, but let's give it a try. We got pretty lucky, actually. So this is where that G key thing in behind mode, just go like this, and it fills in all the little cracks and crevices. Now up here, it's not quite so easy because obviously you pretty much have to hand paint it. But being in behind mode makes it easier because it's harder to make a mistake. Okay, no wonder I keep hitting the G key instead of the F key. Oh, we've got a problem. Darn it, darn it, darn it, darn it. Shoot, something I forgot. By gum, let's go here. Oh boy. Yeah, we have a little bit of a problem. Can I get away with it? I think I can. I think I can get away with it. The problem is that he's actually supposed to have a strip of the flesh tone down his front. So let's just, boy, this is going to be tricky. So I'm going to do this, and I would say probably this. Tricky, tricky, tricky. Okay, that's probably okay, and then that would be the flesh tone. Okay, we'll go with that now, and I'm going to check it here in half a second. So let's go back one step, sample this color since I actually did not hit the X key. Fill tool, behind mode. Let's get all these guys in there, and then what I'm going to do is look at how it looks over the background, because what we have to do is we have to figure out if it's going to be a problem, the fact that you don't really see the flesh tone on his belly in those first couple frames. I don't think it's going to be a problem because it goes by quick, but if it is, I could actually just slop in there a little bit of the flesh tone and it would probably sell the shot. So therefore, yeah, see, hitting this with the G key definitely helps. Just grab the G key, wrap it around there, and it just fills in all those semi-blank pixels. Okay, so what am I talking about? You're going, what are you talking about, Dave? I'm going to put the background back in. What I want to look at is this first couple seconds. Okay, and now obviously that's going to be a problem. Oh, I see. Okay. Boy, how do we want to handle that? Let's turn the background back off, and I would say, I think that flesh tone is baked in, so therefore, everything else can remain the same. I just need to hit G and E and erase everything that's outside like that, so that I can then, uh-oh, we're going to have a leak. I am really sure we're going to have a leak here. Yeah, we're definitely going to have a leak, so fix that. F key, there we go. G key to get the cracks and crevices. Similar situation here. Not too bad. N key. So we got a little tail issue as well, don't we? Hello? That was supposed to be in erase mode. F key. Come on. Come on. Not in erase mode. Sorry. Okay. Cool. Got it. Alright, so then the question was, getting back to our question before I so rudely interrupted myself, how is this working? Okay, I go either way. I would say it would be better. So I'm going to take this color right here, and I need to do some judicious adjustments here. We can't be in behind mode, so this is going to have to be done pretty carefully. Each of these cells are only on the screen for one frame, so we do have a lot of latitude, but I do think it really needs something. So we'll just use the G key and just put a little hint of it there, little hint of it there, little hint there. Probably cleave a little closer with that one, but okay, and this one's going to be a little ugly. This actually climbs down to his belly, meaning his arm's in the way. Now this, I probably should do something like this here. Okay, so now let's rerun that opening sequence and see if it's basically looking correct. That's better, yeah. Especially once we get the shadows in there. Once he's got some shadows, it's all going to sew together nicely. So, soprano recorder. Interesting. I was just watching a video today. A girl has a YouTube channel on orchestration, and she was talking about a soundtrack she worked on where she played the I think it was a tenor recorder. So it was about twice the size of the normal soprano recorders that kids learn in school, but it has a really interesting, rich, low tone, you know. Very interesting. Okay, so what do we have here? Well, here we've got to go G and E and erase that. That'll just have to be repainted. Although, okay, I'm going to cheat a little bit. So let's get rid of the background so that we can get a clean slate to operate on here. Fill tool. This is pretty persnickety work, isn't it? Pretty persnickety work. Okay. Why is it going back to... that's interesting. Yep. G. Well, I guess technically I could. Yeah, that's probably bad policy. Erase and then fill tool. Not in erase mode. There we go. Next frame. Yeah, there's just really no way around. Come on, man. Okay, I hit R instead of E. Trying to hit the keys without looking. And that is questionable. Okay. So this is where it's going to get tricky, friends. This is going to be tricky. Because what I need to do, we got to look very carefully at what's got to be, what changes and what doesn't change. What am I talking about? Well, this area here, this all remains the same. And so what I'm going to try to do here is grab that, Control C. Okay. And now I'm going to go Edit, Paste into Active Layer. It's pretty close. A couple things I got to clean up, but yeah, that's not too bad. So just this little... Well, actually, I was wrong. No, that's actually correct. It just looked like it was wrong. So, look at that. Wango bango. Well, okay. Alright. I stand corrected. There's this one little spot right. Well, no. I mean, actually, what it needs to be is this needs to be the reddish brown color. And then this area right here needs to be chiseled out with the belly color. Sample that. Behind mode. I need to really look into some hotkeys to switch between blending modes. Ah, man, we're leaking. Doggone it. Rats and mice. B key. F key. Oh, that doesn't work so much, does it? Well, I guess we can hit the B key in erase mode and just clean that up a little bit. So, we're okay. World keeps turning. Okay, so now Monkey's got that, and I would say we will just put a guideline right here and here. And then we will put guidelines in right there. We are still in behind mode, so that should work. And what else do we have? He's just got the blink. Does his tail wag anymore? Nope. Okay, cool. So that means we can take this, go to the next key. Ah, we're going to have a leak right there. Ah, got it. Boom, boom, boom. Ah, another leak. Doggone it. Rats. Up there it is. This is the tug of war. The more you keep things loose, in terms of your ink lines and stuff, it is nice to just work with a pencil, and just keep it loose. And the problem is your odds of having little leaks that jump out at you every, here and there are pretty high. It's pretty hard to avoid. Right there is questionable. Probably we should just kind of blur that out. Okay, so what do we have here? Oh, looks like that ink will prevail, and then we got this. Okay, now this is where this job would be way easier to do in Tahoma, because we could lasso the whole thing and it would just fill in all the closed shapes. This is going to be a pain in the rump, Aurelius. Just saying. Just saying. But at the same time, well, this is the task I have chosen to embark on. So there it is, friends. There it is. Still using Blender. Give it a listen. Love the movie, music, bass. That's cool. You say you played violin or viola? I think you said violin, didn't you? Oh, you have tenor and alto recorders too. Jeez, Maria. Look, you know what you should do? Oh, you know what would be super cool? If you want to. If you listen to the webisode of Salt and Light, and you feel inclined to do some improvisation in C sharp minor over top of it with your recorder, feel free and send me a recording, and it'd be interesting to see what you do with it. And just add some live played acoustic color to it. You never know. You never know. But I am really sure that type of a sound, there's definitely a place in the show for that type of a sound, like an alto or a tenor recorder. You know, it's obviously a very well, it's got a sound from a different time, let's put it that way. You know, a non-modern sound. And a very rich, the alto, or I don't know if it was alto or tenor. I think it was tenor, but it's got a rich, breathy character, much breathier than a soprano recorder. Well, like way breathier. I was surprised at how. Let's just say that comparatively, a soprano recorder sounds more like a toy. Let's say. I think you know what I mean by that. Whereas the tenor really had a really good quality timbre to it. A breathy, provocative, that's the word. It had a provocative tone. I thought it was quite interesting. Well, let's see. Keep going here. I hope you like to color, because there's a lot of coloring going on. I haven't really worked with live musicians too much. Now I did try. Actually, it's interesting because when I did the score for a movie I wrote and directed called Out of Time, it was different from any other soundtrack because essentially most of the whole soundtrack was based around a C minor chord, not C sharp minor, but C minor. Salt and Light is like C sharp minor and the relative major key A or E, whereas this was actually, the whole thing was in C minor. And it was very much a Hans Zimmer or Harry Gregson Williams kind of thing. Very, very modern sounding. But just on a lark, there was a guy I knew who was a big fan of guys like Charlie Parker, and he was a sax player, and he was quite a good sax player. So I said, Rich, why don't you just come into the studio and I'll play you some of these vamps that are going on in C minor, and you could just like improv over them. And I have to say it didn't work at all, because you could tell he had a certain type of thing he did that was based on that Charlie Parker kind of thing. Very bebop, very let's say freeform. You know, he couldn't come around to giving it a sense of melody that a normal person could grab. He just was so into that bebop thing. And I don't mean bebop like Joe Pass. I mean bebop like Dizzy and Charlie going hog wild. And it was like he could play well, but it just didn't feel good. You know, it just wasn't pleasant to listen to, unfortunately. So it really didn't work in the soundtrack. Okay. This seems to be working pretty well. Seems to be working pretty well. I'm going to keep going since I'm on a good path here. Behind mode? Yep. Let's go forward one more. In behind mode. Let's go. Boom. Yes! Boom. Not so much. Now, and just to be, so I don't sound like I'm Mr. Know-It-All, I could not even begin to play the kind of stuff Rich was playing. You know, I get it. I think I get it. You know, if you know the chord chart, and I think this is partly why he struggled. If you know the chord chart and you know how to improvise, basically you need to improvise two things. If you're playing if I give you an A minor chord, say you got an A, you got a C, and you got an E. Say, well, okay, improv over that. Well, what are you going to do? Well, if you know the thing is in A minor, number one, you're going to play some arpeggios, right? So you're going to probably play A, C, E. But then how are you going to ornament that, right? Well, especially on a monophonic instrument like a saxophone or a recorder, what are you going to do? You have to play arpeggios if you want to communicate to your listener that a chord. If you want them to sense, sort of the home base or the chordal identity of the music, you've got to play an arpeggio in some way, shape, or form. It could be some ostinato thing that you get going. But then the question is, how do you improvise over top of that? And basically what I would think is, if you're in A minor, then let's say, it doesn't matter if it's major or minor, but what you're probably going to do is you're going to add some, the 2, and you might add a 4, but you're definitely going to probably, well, certainly if you're in major, you're going to add some 6s and some 2s, so what you wind up with is essentially a pentatonic scale. You're winding up with a 5-note scale that's vamping over top of a 3-note chord. Then the question becomes, well, where do you go from there? And one of the places you go from there is chromatic passing notes that get you from. So your safest notes, of course, are the notes of the chord. Your less safe notes are going to be like your 2s and your 6s that are very consonant with the chord, but basically add the relative major or minor feeling to the chord you're playing. Meaning, if I'm playing an A, C sharp, E, then if I add a B and say an F sharp to that, I'm adding the 2 and the 6, so I'm giving you the feeling of an F sharp minor, or to a degree a B minor, over top of an A. And those all work. It all feels good. Well, when you start to give undue emphasis to the passing tones, you're making a really, a creative choice where those tones are going to carry the day in terms of the emotional experience of the music. What the person is going to feel is the dominance of those notes that are not, in fact, part of the chord that the music's trying to convey. I hope this makes sense. To you guys that are musical, it probably will make sense. So then what you wind up with is to an average listener, it begins to sound like cacophony because it doesn't communicate something that they can understand or relate to, musically. And I think that's what can go wrong with your bebop type music is it's actually probably like me talking here on the live stream. It's like, Dave, you never shut up. And I say that a little bit tongue in cheek, but it's also serious that if the music doesn't breathe, and in Rich's case that was part of the problem, is that he was vamping so much that the music never really took a breath, right? So it really got old surprisingly quick, even though the guy was really a good player. So, I don't know. I find the whole thing kind of interesting. Jazz is interesting too. Jazz, bebop, the more, let's say, dissonant idioms of popular music that never really did become popular, frankly. Bebop never became popular. People just couldn't relate to it. They couldn't understand it, I don't think. And so what happens is, in that culture, in that subculture of music, you wind up with artists like Joe Pass, for example, who are extremely well known and well regarded by other musicians, but they will never, ever in a million years gain anything resembling, widespread popularity. They just won't, because the musical ideas are just too obscure for people to wrap their head around. What do I mean by obscure? Basically singable. If you can't hum along to a piece of music and the average person couldn't maybe just kind of sing along or hum it, they're not going to typically grab it too much. So, is that Valerie? No, that's Kyle. Heard somebody coming down the stairs. I'm like, who's coming down the stairs at this late hour? So that's not a good thing or a bad thing. I mean, I listen to a lot of music that would never be considered popular music in the sense that it's Well, like a lot of movie soundtracks and stuff. You know, it's extremely dissonant, a lot of it, and it's beautiful in its own way. But it's like John Williams. Who can actually, you can sing along with the main theme of, say, you know, Jurassic Park. You know, whatever. That type of thing. But boy, oh boy, you give me the music that goes on during the action scenes in Indiana Jones. No human being could ever sing that. You know, it's just too much going on, too fast, too dissonant. But that doesn't mean it's not beautiful, because I do like it. Love that stuff. Okay, I'm probably what are we doing? Medieval ancient instruments. Yep. Ancient Greek and Russian liturgical music. Yeah. Yeah, what do they call the what do they call the period before the Baroque period? You know, like Handel was kind of the end of that period before you get into Bach and basically the Baroque kind of thing. I'm not a huge fan of Baroque music. I mean, in the classical arena, what I favor is the Romantic period, because I think just because that's where most of the more melodic side of film scoring kind of comes from, really. That's sort of its DNA. Once you get into the 20th century, you get into Schoenberg, to a lesser extent, I suppose, Stravinsky. But, you know, when you get into the experiments with atonality, again, you're in the same situation. I find it interesting that classical music and jazz music followed the same path. So blues, you know, the slaves in the field singing spirituals, I suppose, you know, and blues music turned into ragtime, turned into big band, and it became, as you moved into the 40s and 50s, post-World War II, it became increasingly dissonant. You got into your bebop period, and once you got into that period where it became more experimental and dissonant, you got guys like Charlie Parker and Dizzy Gillespie that were amazing players, but the ability of that music to be popular became lost. And you had the exact same thing happening with classical music. Romantic music was popular. Then you moved into the 20th century. You had Stravinsky starting to push the envelope, sort of preceded by Wagner, I suppose, right? And then you get into, as I say, Schoenberg, and it's like, forget it. You know, people just cannot wrap their head around that music. So I'm sure this is all very fascinating to all of you. I have no idea. I'm just blabbing about. I mean, the whole musical history is quite interesting. I mean, a few years ago, I sat and I listened here on YouTube, actually, to Leonard Bernstein's 1973 Norton lecture series, lectures at Harvard, and he was likening communication in music to, he was relating it to Noam Chomsky's work in linguistics. You know, now Noam Chomsky's probably thought of more as a sort of a, you might say, a political commentator in today, but back then, that what he was known for in the university academia was his work in linguistics. And but Bernstein did a really good job of carrying the listener through that progression from basically the latter half of the 1800s to the latter half of the 1900s. That's really the territory that he covered in the lectures. And quite an interesting, you know, analysis or whatever. Okay, so we have a little problem here in that Got that little spot right there. We're going to have to go into normal mode and try to do it carefully. Well, I guess I did okay. So can we get away with leaving that flesh tone for a bit? I think we can. Let's see what we've got here. Jeez, and I haven't even gotten into shadows yet. How long have I been live streaming? Hey, Inio-san. Yeah, Liszt. Well, Liszt, Liszt and Wagner were contemporaries, and yes. Okay, so what bridges the gap? The interesting thing about that is what bridges the gap between melodic, or let's say diatonic, romantic period, and then the innovations, for good or bad, depending on your opinion, in the 20th century. And I think the bridge between the two would be guys like Debussy, or I should say Debussy, because the experiments he did with whole tone scales were beginning to introduce that, not really dissonance, but basically the idea that you can't really identify a key center for the piece. Because when you use a whole tone scale, essentially, if you go up the scale, every 2 notes, you're essentially changing key as far as what your ear perceives and relating it to diatonic music. So when you have music that's continually changing key, well, what does a person relate to or grab onto? Because they can't really sing it. Most people would not be capable. I mean, really. And what they're going to grab is they're going to grab timbre, they're going to grab rhythm, and that's where Stravinsky could get away with it. When you listen to Rite of Spring, or the like, what's the one, Firebird, is it? I can't remember the bird one, but when you listen to that stuff, it's very much about the rhythms and the timbres and the dissonant. The fact that it's melodically dissonant doesn't really matter, because the effect you get from it has to do with the manipulation of dynamics and timbres more than melodies. So it isn't singable melodies that we're trying to achieve anymore in that case. It's a whole different thing that he was experimenting with. I don't love Stravinsky, but I do respect some of the innovations. Okay, I had this ear. Oh. Let me see here. I don't know. I better save my work. I don't know if I take this. I think I hear Val coming. If Val's coming, I'm going to quit. Yep, I'm going to quit. I'm going to go hang out with my sweetie. I've been streaming for quite a while. And I'm about ready to quit anyway. So it's gone well. I would say we can rewind and let this thing play. I'm liking what I see. Needs a little color correction and whatnot, but I think we're on a good path here. So with that, I will sign off. It has been an hour and a half, so it's been appropriate. And yeah, Firebird. So anyway, I hope I haven't bored anybody too much, but the stuff I've been jabbering about, like this music stuff, I love it. I mean, to me, it's fascinating. I think it's, and there are certainly too few people in my life that I could actually have an interesting discussion about that with. I do know, I know a couple guys that play in the symphony here in Fort Wayne and things like that, but one guy that's an amazingly accomplished piano player. You can find him here. He's called Piano Turtle. Piano Turtle on YouTube is a friend of mine, and he's an extremely good piano player. He's got some beautiful stuff on his channel. And with that, I will sign off. And as you guys know, there will be more later.